So, is it a desperate search for a better life, or a calculated exploitation of the system? Welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving straight into a really complex phenomenon detailed in our source material. We're looking at the migration of Nepali youth to Europe, and specifically, this rising trend of asylum claims within the community. It's a massive topic, and it's sparking a ton of debate right now.
The text we're analyzing asks a pretty striking question right off the bat. Is this growing wave of asylum applications simply a hunt for economic opportunity, or is it actually an active insult to the homeland? Because as we'll see, the lengths some folks go to just to secure their stay in Europe are raising some really serious legal and personal questions.
To get the full picture, here's our roadmap. We're going to cover the European asylum surge, the motivations behind these false claims, how danger is fabricated, the paradox of patriotism, the impact on national identity, and finally, the long-term consequences.
All right, Section 1, the European asylum surge, a wave of claims from a safe country.
Our source material points out a really glaring contradiction here. See, Nepal is officially recognized by a lot of European nations as a safe country of origin, right? There's no civil war, no armed conflict, and citizens have constitutional rights, free speech, education, healthcare, movement. But the asylum claims being filed paint a completely different picture. They're packed with these fabricated tales of extreme danger, political persecution, and a highly oppressive state. The source actually notes that claiming, "I'll be killed if I return to Nepal," is, in many of these cases, literally just made up.
Moving on to Section 2, motivations behind false claims. What exactly drives the deception?
So why do it? Well, the sources outline some very specific systemic loopholes, and honestly, some really intense social incentives that push people toward this. First off, you've got this massive legal wall. It's incredibly hard to convert a basic student or tourist visa into a work permit in Europe. So when that visa is about to expire, filing for asylum becomes this sort of desperate loophole to stay. Then enter the human smugglers. They feed right off this desperation, selling fake promises of an easy settlement. Add to that the immense social pressure. The text really highlights the heavy stigma of returning to Nepal empty-handed after spending so much money to get to Europe in the first place. Plus, you can't ignore the generous welfare benefits. In France, for instance, asylum seekers can get ADA, which is a monthly living allowance, and Puma, which gives them free healthcare. And the kicker? Once someone actually gets refugee status, it acts as a huge shortcut for legal family reunion to bring their spouse and kids over.
Now, the text makes an absolutely crucial distinction here. An economic migrant is someone looking for better living standards and employment, which, let's be real, is the reality for most of these applicants. A genuine refugee, on the other hand, is someone literally forced to flee their home because of actual persecution or violence. The source makes it very clear. Deliberately blurring these lines by filing fake claims does massive damage to the genuine refugees who are truly in danger and desperately need that legal protection.
That brings us to Section 3, fabricating danger for visas, the legal labyrinth. This trap almost always starts out totally legally. You arrive in Europe on a standard student or tourist visa. But Step 2 is where it gets tricky. That visa expires. You hit a legal wall and the panic sets in. To avoid going home, people are pushed into Step 3, filing for asylum using completely fabricated stories. According to the source, these narratives often falsely claim things like LGBTQ+ discrimination, ethnic violence, or political persecution. And that just plunges them into Step 4, a complete legal labyrinth, living every single day with the constant looming threat of deportation.
The deception essentially breaks down into three pretty severe categories. First up is identity theft. Some applicants actually steal the historical trauma of others, falsely claiming to be Bhutanese or Tibetan refugees just to get sympathy and legal status. Second is political and social deception. This means dragging up decade-old conflict stories or literally forging fake police reports and threat letters from back home. And finally, personal and family deception. The text points out that some folks will claim to be unmarried or even orchestrate entire fake divorces just to game the system and bring their family over later. It really shows the extreme length some people will go to for a visa.
Let's look at Section 4, the paradox of patriotism, the dual character of fake applicants.
This part of the explainer exposes a deeply ironic cycle. So the very same individuals who actively bash their homeland to foreign governments, painting it as this violently oppressive state just to get their papers, will seamlessly flip the script once they're secure. Seriously, once they have that legal status, they suddenly put on the mask of the great nationalist or community leader abroad. They'll travel back and forth, investing in the exact same country they just claimed was trying to kill them. It's quite the paradox.
Moving on to Section 5, Impact on National Identity, the ripple effect of individual actions.
The collateral damage from these fabricated stories is absolutely massive, and it honestly impacts everyone. Because European immigration officials are, catching on to these fake narratives, the credibility of the entire Nepali passport is tanking. The source points out that genuine students, honest tourists, even medical patients, they're now facing incredibly high visa rejection rates because their applications are just automatically viewed with suspicion. It's also creating real diplomatic mistrust between Nepal and European nations. Plus, highly skilled Nepali workers are getting stereotyped in the global job market, downgraded from being seen as dedicated professionals to just being viewed as rule breakers or economic migrants. And worst of all, the real victims, the genuine refugees, are met with heavy skepticism, which actively jeopardizes the safety they desperately need.
Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, the long-term consequences. Living on a weak foundation.
10. That's 10 years. This source makes a really terrifying point here. Even a full decade down the line, long after you think you're safe and finally settled, if the authorities discover that your original asylum story was a lie, it all comes crashing down. You're looking at immediate cancellation of your residency, massive financial fines, and humiliating deportation right back to the country you defamed. The legal risk literally never expires.
And beyond the legal nightmare, there is a brutal psychological toll. Just imagine living every single day wondering if today is the day your life catches up with you. The explainer calls it a life of psychological anxiety. This constant, heavy stress prevents people from ever truly living freely. They can't openly embrace their identity or fully engage in their new community because they're constantly looking over their shoulder.
So we leave you with this final provocative thought directly from our source material. Securing a European residency card might seem like a huge victory in the short term. But if that entire future is built on an incredibly weak foundation of lies, what does it mean for the next generation? Will the temporary gains of today permanently tarnish the honesty and reputation of an entire community tomorrow? It's a heavy question, for sure, but one we all need to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. I hope it gave you some real clarity on such a complex issue.